The winter wind cut through Sarah's threadbare coat like broken glass, each gust a reminder of how far she'd fallen. 3 months ago, she'd been scrambling eggs in her sunny kitchen, humming while her daughter Emma got ready for school. Now she sat hunched on a plastic bus stop bench at 11 p.m., her stomach hollow, her hope even emptier. The eviction notice was still crumpled in her pocket, a final notice. They'd called it. Final seemed like the right word for everything in her life. The city never slept, but at this hour, it dozed fitfully. Neon signs flickered against the darkness, casting sickly colors across wet pavement. Sarah pulled her knees to her chest, trying to conserve what little warmth remained in her body. Her phone had died hours ago, not that it mattered, there was no one left to call. She'd sold everything worth selling. The wedding ring had gone first, then her grandmother's jewelry, then Emma's toys, one by one, until their apartment looked like a crime scene stripped bare. When the final paycheck from the restaurant bounced, the owner disappearing overnight with everyone's wage, Sarah knew she was drowning with no shore in sight. The approaching footsteps were soft, almost tentative. Sarah kept her eyes down, hoping whoever it was would keep walking. She learned that eye contact invited questions she couldn't answer, pity she couldn't bear, or worthy recognition from someone who'd known her before. "Excuse me." The voice was small, uncertain. Sarah looked up to find a little girl, maybe 6 years old, standing 3 feet away. She wore a purple winter coat that looked expensive, her dark hair braided neatly despite the late hour. But it was her eyes that stopped Sarah's breath. They held the same hollow exhaustion that Sarah saw in her own reflection. "Are you okay?" the child asked. Sarah's throat tightened. When was the last time someone had asked her that simple question? "I'm fine, sweetheart." "Where are your parents?" The little girl Amaya, she said her name was, glanced toward the 24-hour laundromat across the street. Through the fluorescent-lit windows, Sarah could see a thin woman folding clothes with mechanical precision, her movements sharp with barely contained panic. "Mummy's working," Maya said. "She works at night now because they pay more, but she can't afford a babysitter, so I have to come with her. I wait here on the bench, but it's really cold." Maya's matter-of-fact delivery of her circumstances hit Sarah harder than any sob story could have. "How long have you been coming here?" Sarah asked, scooting over to make room on the bench. 2 weeks. "Since Daddy left." Maya climbed up beside her, swinging her legs. "Mommy cries when she thinks I'm sleeping. She doesn't know I hear her on the phone, trying to find day work. She says we might have to move to her car if she can't pay rent." Sarah's chest constricted. She recognized the script. It was her own story with different actors. "That must be scary." Maya nodded gravely. "Mommy tries to hide it, but I know. I'm 6 now. I understand things." She studied Sarah's face with unsettling intensity. "Are you homeless?" The question hung in the cold air like a challenge. Sarah had spent months avoiding that word, dancing around it with euphemisms. Temporarily displaced, between situations, going through a rough patch. But here was this little girl, asking with the kind of honesty that adults had trained themselves out of. "Yeah," Sarah whispered. "I am. Me and Mommy might be too, soon." Maya scooted closer. "Do you have any kids?" Sarah's breath caught. "I had a daughter, Emma." "She's—" The words wouldn't come. How do you explain to a child that social services can take everything that matters when you can't provide the basics? That somewhere across town, her Emma was sleeping in a foster bed, probably wondering why Mommy had abandoned her. "Where is she now?" Maya's question was gentle, like she already knew the answer would hurt. "Safe," Sarah managed. "She's somewhere safe. where she has food and a warm bed and people who can take care of her properly. The practiced explanation tasted bitter. It was what she told herself at 3 a.m. when the guilt threatened to swallow her whole. Maya was quiet for a long moment, processing this information with the wisdom that only comes from growing up too fast. When she spoke again, her voice was barely above a whisper. "Can you be my mommy?" The words hit Sarah like a physical blow. She turned to stare at this little girl who just asked the impossible, the heartbreaking, the beautiful question that revealed how desperately they both needed something they couldn't have. "Honey, yeah, not forever," Maya rushed to explain, as if she'd been planning this conversation. "Just sometimes, when mommy has to work late and I'm scared. When I need someone to tell me stories or help me with big words. I could share my snacks with you, and maybe you wouldn't be so cold if you had someone to sit with." Sarah's vision blurred. Here was this child, who had so little herself, offering to take care of her. The generosity of it, the pure instinctive kindness, shattered something inside Sarah's chest that she'd been holding rigid with desperation. "Maya," she whispered, "you don't need to take care of me. But we could take care of each other," Maya said simply. "That's what families do, right? Even when they don't have much." Across the street, Maya's mother looked up from her work, scanning the street with sudden panic. When she spotted Maya on the bench, relief flooded her features. She held up one finger. "5 more minutes. Your mama loves you very much," Sarah said. "I know, but she's sad all the time now, and tired. Sometimes I think she forgets that I'm still just a kid. You know, she tells me things about money and bills that make my stomach hurt." Sarah understood perfectly. The weight of adult worries settling on small shoulders, childhood compressed into premature wisdom. She'd watched it happen to Emma in those final weeks before the state intervened. "What if," Sarah said carefully, "what if sometimes when your mom has to work late, you could come sit with me? We could be bus stop buddies. I could tell you stories, and you could tell me about school." Maya's face lit up with a smile that could have powered the city. "Really? You'd want to?" "I'd love to," Sarah said, and meant it. For the first time in months, she felt useful, needed, like maybe she wasn't completely broken after all. A week later, Sarah sat on the same bench, but everything was different. Maya's mother, Elena, had approached her that first night with cautious gratitude. 3 women, she'd said, looking out for each other in a city that seemed designed to grind people down. Elena had connections at the shelter, knew which ones were safe, which programs actually helped instead of just processing people through bureaucratic machinery. Sarah still slept in the shelter, still let at soup kitchens, still made phone calls about Emma that went nowhere. But now she also spent evenings helping Maya with homework, teaching her card games her own grandmother had taught her, sharing stories about brave princesses who saved themselves. "Sarah," Maya said one evening, looking up from her math worksheet, "do you think your Emma would like me?" Sarah's throat closed. She'd been approved for supervised visits. Tomorrow, she'd see her daughter for the first time in 3 months. "I think she'd love you," she said truthfully. The next evening, Maya waited with unusual excitement. "How was she?" "Your Emma?" Sarah's smile was watery but genuine. She asked if I'd made any new friends. She said she was proud of me for helping someone else, even when things were hard for me too. Maya beamed. "She sounds nice. Maybe someday, when you get your apartment back, we could all have a sleepover." "Maybe we could," Sarah agreed. The future still felt fragile, uncertain. But for the first time, she could imagine one that included hope. A little girl had asked her to be a mummy when she felt like she'd failed at everything that mattered. In teaching Maya that family wasn't always about blood or legal documents, Sarah was learning it herself. Sometimes salvation arrives not as a grand gesture, but as a small hand slipping into yours on a cold night, reminding you that even when you think you have nothing left to give, love multiplies when it's shared. At that bus stop, two broken families had found each other in the dark, and discovered that sometimes being someone's temporary angel is exactly what your own soul needs to remember how to fly.